My name is Kathy McGrain. I want to welcome you to the Environmental Sustainability Webinar. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2017, and this session is being recorded. I'd like to turn the mic over to Jane Stallman, the webinar leader.
Thank you all for participating in this webinar. We normally would start in a little different place, but we have a very, very special poem here that Ryan Bell's daughter wrote. When Ryan, she was in the 5th or 6th grade, I think, when she wrote this. She's now how old?
She's 13 in an 8th grade.
Now, I'm happy to read it, or if you would like to read it, we would welcome your reading it as well.
Sure, happy to. So this is a poem she wrote in about 5th grade, and the assignment was to pick an inanimate object and write a poem about what it would remember if it had a brain from its perspective, and most people were writing things about, if I was a chair, I'm tired of people sitting on me. And on her own, without any prompting, she came home one day with this poem entitled The Earth Remembers. The Earth remembers everything. It remembers its birth, and it will remember its death. It remembers being a single asteroid, then 2, then 4, then more. It remembers the first drop of water seeped up from the ground. It remembers the violent explosion of lava rising up from its mountains. It remembers the first sprouts of grass rising up from between its rocks. It remembers the first forest ferns and the trees feel soft on its surface. It remembers the first animal drinking from its streams and eating from its forest. Wait, there's something new. It's like a monkey, but it's different too. It started in tents and castles galore. Tall stone buildings ignite the earth like the lava did once before. Dirt paths are replaced with black strips for metal boxes to go on to faraway places. Why life ended up this way, I'm not sure, but nobody likes the earth anymore. This is a metaphor, I know. For some of you do, but for some, it is very true.
I first saw this poem this summer when we asked Ryan to share and participate in this webinar, and I've had pictures of his children from the time they were little, and I was so impressed with this wonderful, wonderful poem that his daughter wrote, and her thinking of the earth as this object and how it is receiving our ministrations as the human species on it. Now, I want to mention that you also have an opportunity to communicate. The little icon up there that is a little person holding up their hand, it has a series of emoticons you can use to help give us information. This is particularly important for those of you that are have difficulty speaking. So I'd like everybody to go up to it and just raise your hand so we get a sense that you know how to work with it. Okay, we're getting those all up, and Brad and Josh and Karen and Savannah. Let's make sure we all know how to use it. And then Brad, are you okay? Brad, we got you in. Emily, it looks like Emily Sadiq's on the call. Emily, you probably can do voice. We'd love to have you connect by voice. And we're just checking to make sure that everybody knows how to use the emoticons. So Emily and Brad, I don't see you using them yet. I'd like to have you just show that you can do it. And then I'd like everybody to go up to the emoticons. Looks like Savannah stepped away for a moment. And just check one of the other icons, that just anyone, just so you get a little bit of sense of what we're trying to do. Okay, Ruth has got a smiling face, and got applause and check marks and more smiley faces. This is a good way to let us know if you need us to speed up or slow down, or you want to applaud something that somebody has said. And that really is a good way to connect with us all. So I'm going to, Kathy, if you would switch us to the next layout, I'd be very happy to do that. And the way that you get that emoticon gone is to click on, go up and click on it again. So I'm going to click on raise my hand, and I'm now back without those emoticons there. So, was speaking? I'd love to hear that voice. Was that Emily, maybe?
Well, Amy's hand is up.
Okay, Amy. You're on mute. If you want to speak, please do.
I think that was still just a test. My hand is not up. I don't know how to not take it on. Lower hand. There we go.
There you go. Great. So we all know how to use the emoticons. And Sunny, I would like you to read in just a moment our purpose. And I'd like to say a little bit about these webinars. These webinars are co-hosted by the Institute of Cultural Affairs USA, represented by Caitlin Sorrow, who is on the staff of ICA-USA. And I'm Jane Stallman. I'm with the Center for Strategic Facilitation. And over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, this is our third environmental sustainability webinar. And we also have a wonderful community development webinar we did. And this is our last webinar for the year. And it's just been a delight and a pleasure to be able to work with you and work with participants, presenters, on looking at ideas and projects that are successful that can give us hope and inspiration, as well as to build more of a community of practice related to the top methods. And not just top methods, but participatory methods, because our unique frame for these environmental sustainability webinars is that there's lots of work being done in technology, in legal action, all kinds of work being done, but our focus is on examples of work being done that use participation as a primary means to accomplish ends and success. So I'm going to ask Sunny if she would read our purpose for us.
All right. Human-caused climate change is a defining issue of our time. These webinars focus on the application of participatory methods, the Institute of Cultural Affairs Technology of Participation, or TOP, and other participatory methods to move local communities and organizations to take just and impactful climate actions. This webinar will be an opportunity to 1. Expand your thinking on environmental sustainability, 2. Learn more from specific examples and case stories about engaging communities in climate change initiatives, and 3. Exchange with others in the field.
Thank you so much, Sunny. And I'm going to quickly go over our agenda for today, and then we're going to have you do introductions. So for those of you that don't have voice, then we're going to ask you to type in the chat pod, and I'm going to move the chat pod out of its space so that we can expand it. But first, let me just say we're going to go over, we're going to talk about with our purpose we've covered. Our focus is participatory practices and environmental sustainability. And then you are a big part of the learning and sharing of today. We're going to have 3 presentations. We're not certain if Olive Ann Slaughter is going to join us. She's having great challenges at her home in Denver with Wi-Fi, but we hope she'll be able to come on. Sunny Walker and Olive Ann Slaughter work together on the Accelerate Neighborhood Action Program in Denver, and are doing amazing work around neighborhood action plans related to increasing environmental sustainability in each neighborhood, and it's a wonderful presentation. So if Olive Ann is not able to join us, we will, Sunny is prepared to cover their full presentation. Both Olive Ann Slaughter and Sunny Walker have worked with ICA for many decades now, and are some of the people that participated in early community planning sessions and have developed a whole cadre of people in Denver that are committed to environmental sustainability in neighborhoods. Ryan Bell is with the University of California System, the Office of the President, and is working in the sustainability office there. And I first met Ryan and Alameda County Sustainability's work, where we worked on several projects along with Carolyn Blady, one of the design team members for these webinars. And Ryan, 1 or 2 years ago, moved to the UC system, where he's been working with a number of projects, but one of them is the Cool Challenge, which involved students from all over the UC system. It's just an amazing project. But Ryan's also going to touch base with us on the range of things our UC system in California is doing. And then I'm going to do a little tiny spotlight. I'm sort of a little insignificant piece of this, but on 2 projects that I have worked with that have are small, but they're things that anyone can do. And I have a short period of time, but I'm happy to share with you some of those. After we have the presentations, and you'll have a chance to ask questions about each presentation, we're going to go to our questions of significance. And these are questions where you'll be able to talk with a whole panel of presenters about things that have stood out to you, things that may cut across all the presentations, but they're not necessarily clarification questions. You can do that after each presentation. And then we're going to look at what are some of the insights and learnings that we have gained from our presenters today. And we'll look for themes across those, and then we'll look at what's next. Caitlin's going to jump in at the questions of significance, and she'll be facilitating the last half of this session. The last part is really critical to us because in January in Walnut Creek, we're having the Top Network Conference, which is going to have a whole 4-hour session on environmental sustainability on Sunday afternoon. And Caitlin, Carolyn, Karen will all be involved in establishing that session. The input you're giving us, the resources you suggest to us, will continue to inform the work that happens in January. So it's all important to us. So thank you for being here, and I am going to get our chat pod moved out, and I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. And Caitlin, I think, why don't you just really quickly answer the questions that are there? What's your name? Where are you? And one item in the news this week on environmental sustainability. And we'll start with you, and then we're going to go down
my name
the
is
list
Caitlin
of
Farrow.
names
I
for
am
our
located in Chicago, Illinois. And one item in the news is we're close to Montrose Beach and a recent location of the piping plover, which is an endangered bird. And it was just announced that on November 18th will be like National Plover Day. So we're hosting a movie, a short film about the plover and its recent historic nesting in our beach. And it's exciting that it's getting some attention. And I am complete. Am I passing it to you, Jane?
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. I want to mention a news story that's affected my part of the world. I live in Ecuador, and it was the killing of an Amazonian indigenous leader who was trying to protect indigenous lands from
Hi,
logging.
this is Kathy McGreen. I'm in
Kathy,
Anoka,
I'll pass
Minnesota,
to
which
you.
is just north of Minneapolis. And my piece of news is about the Keystone pipeline that broke and dumped all kinds of oil. Apparently they've gathered up some of the oil, but we know what's happening to the indigenous people there. It's not good for them, their land, their water, or for any of us, because it comes down, it goes south. So a friend of mine has an app called Maps.me. She has been watching a new pipeline go in, and she goes up there and takes pictures. And Maps.me tells her the date and the location, the longitude, latitude of where she took those photos. So she's doing a log of what's happening up there. I am complete, and I'm going to pass to Sunny Walker.
And before you pass, I just want to say that was so fascinating. And our
just about an hour ago, NBC
Sunny,
posted
now
an
on.
article about a deadly virus that was in the Atlantic, has now spread to the Pacific and is killing sea mammals. And climate change is to blame, as best they can tell. I'm complete. Pass to Amy. Oh, Ryan, sorry. Need my glasses.
Or to Ryan.
This is Ryan Bell. I'm based here in Oakland, California, and a piece of news that caught my attention yesterday was at our Global Climate Leadership Council, where a professor mentioned that he had been tracking student opinions ranking climate change to other issues that we're facing in our country. And in the last year, for the first time, climate change has topped the list of concerns, of showing a sea change of people paying attention to this topic.
Thank you, Ryan. And Amy,
Sure.
we'll pass to you.
I'm in Solana Beach, California, and I was just listening to the news yesterday morning about the case in Hawaii where the wastewater treatment plant there is injecting their wastewater into the groundwater, which is getting into the ocean and killing coral reefs, and the kind of court case is looking like it might walk back the previous administration's sort of broader interpretation of the Clean Water Act that would prevent that entity from being responsible for that pollution.
Thank you so much, Amy. And Brad, I don't know that you have microphone capacity, but if you don't, if you would type in the notepad, and we'll give you a moment to do that, and we'll go on to Carolyn. Well, we realize you have a noisy background, but we'd still like to hear your voice. Carolyn, if you're speaking, your microphone is on mute. Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
So Carolyn,
yes,
you're looking at
Carolyn.
your name, your location, and one item in the news this week.
Chicago, Illinois, and I was reading recently about, I think, good news and somewhat unfortunate news that it's only the first, but that Italy is studying climate change a requirement in their schools.
Thank you, Carolyn. And Ruth had asked you to speak louder, so next time if you can increase your microphone volume, it would be helpful. And Catherine, I don't know if you can connect into the microphone. We hope so. But if not, please type your response in the chat pod. And Emily, I do not know if you can log into the microphone or not, but if you can't, please type your response in the chat pod, right? And let's go to Emily S, who I'm thinking is
in
probably
Berkeley,
Emily
California, and an article that caught my attention was one about the public health consequences of wildfire smoke, which is increasing, as we see here in California. That was an article on grist.org. Thank you. And I'm passing to Josh Phillips.
And Josh says he's in Chicago, resident here, originally from London, UK. Something I found exciting in the news recently was that the Ocean Cleanup Team unveiled a solar-powered interceptor boat to collect plastic in rivers. Josh will want to add that to our resource list in the file share pod. That's great.
Yes, this is Karen Bain
Karen,
in
may we hear your voice?
the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was just listening on the news on NPR about the possible change of PG&E to a utility user-owned entity, which would affect, I guess, financing of the transmission lines and upkeep.
Thank you. And Karen Lewis, if you would either type in the chat pod or speak.
Hi, this is Renee. I'm in Chicago, and something that I'm thinking about in terms of sustainability and climate change is the lake levels in Lake Michigan. They're really high this year. It's going to be a bad winter for us, and there's a lot of community conversations about what we're going to do with it. So that's what's top of mind for me.
Hi, I'm Ruth Gilbert, and I
am
in Chicago. I am aware that 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 1 independent have joined together in a bilateral caucus to begin the conversation on climate change and want to have legislation to the Congress by next year.
Oh my, great, Ruth.
Vanessa
Thank
typed
you.
in
And
a message here. She said, Vanessa Flores from Chicago, Illinois. News this week, Trump notifies the UN that the U.S. is withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. The AIA urges him not to. AIA president says the economic impact of the United States as a participant in the Paris Agreement is a fraction of the toll we will pay if we do not make climate action a top priority as a nation. The stakes couldn't be higher. A reversal of this decision is critical. And Catherine Welch also has a message down there. She says, Colorado just passed Proposition DD to apply sports betting tax revenue to water projects. I'm guessing Catherine's from Colorado? I'm complete.
Thank you for those. And Emily, or non-Emily S., our Emily Rash, is from Dubuque, Iowa, and did not mention a news item, but Emily, at some point you're welcome to come in and share that as well. So I think at this point, Kathy, we're ready to go to Olive Ann and Sunny's presentation. And Sunny, since it looks like Olive Ann has not been able to join us yet, we're going to turn it over to you.
And I will say that Catherine Welch is a part of this project, and I'm happy to have her say something now and then if she chooses. Olive Ann did text that she just can't get on. Her stuff is a mess. So, our program is called Accelerate Neighborhood Climate Action, and these are forums to support climate work in small place-based areas, block by block. This particular image is one of our favorites because it not only emphasizes how tiny that protective layer is, but how beautiful. Our intent is to take the climate conversation and how people act to the individual, the family, and the neighborhood level because, as Al Gore stated so well, there is no planet B. So exactly what is a forum? We're doing these forums in neighborhoods, and it's a 5 to 6 hour event. It starts with having a neighborhood invite you in and working with them to set up a neighborhood coordinating team. And they bring the people to the event and they handle the logistics. We begin those events with a climate science presentation. We're trying to move toward things that are more hopeful, but at the same time we are noticing that things are getting more dire. So it's a tough one. We do celebrate what's already going on by asking each person who's there to say what's one thing they're doing for the planet already. And then we do a standard ICA workshop, a top consensus workshop on what do they see in place in a couple of years once they have lowered their carbon footprint in their neighborhood. A quick assessment on flip charts of the strengths they have to go there and the challenges they'll have to overcome. And then we have them self-select under those vision categories where they want to start their action. And they fill out action plan sheets. and share those. And we will also provide resource information if they ask for it. Sometimes groups have said, well, we want to have a presentation on green roofs because the city of Denver just passed a law that you can have those now. Or some of our people want to know about trees. Or, you know, whatever people ask for, we'll find a resource to bring in, and it may be a presentation at the beginning because it's what they want, or it may be tables over lunch where they can go to different tables and learn what they want to learn. And then, of course, we document it all, and it's posted, it's sent out to everyone and posted at our website. These are the 79 city and county of Denver neighborhoods. The city and the county are identical. This is where we have had our 10 forums that have covered 12 neighborhoods because one of the umbrella organizations covered 3 neighborhoods. Now, key components for us, and I apologize that so much of this is text heavy, but because you're going to get the slides, I wanted to be sure you had enough information for it to be useful. So getting on the local climate map was really critical for us, and we did that through 3 partners, and you'll see the ICA logo. That was our first partner. Those other 2 logos will show up later on. And we've done a ton of presentations across the city about the forums. We've had people come to forums as guests so they can check it out and decide if they're going to do one in their place. And we've done some demonstration events that weren't actually a full forum because they were such a mix of people. It was hard for people to focus on a particular neighborhood. Our committee of about 10 or 12 has been really strong throughout, and you really need that. It's been volunteers plus a climate scientist and some university students. We have a web presence, and our Facebook page is really active. We have a university student who graduated and joined our committee full-time and manages that Facebook page and puts up resources for people all the time. And she'll have a focus on a month. And in fact, the food waste month was the most highly visited theme of the whole year. We do a couple of interchange events among people who have done forums so they can talk to each other about what's working and help each other out. We've had a lot of local businesses involved, and a really critical piece for us has, I've labeled it there, pushing neighborhoods to have skin in the game. We make them pay so that the facilitator can get paid. We're now calling it an ANCA fee, not just a facilitator fee, but we want them to find that money somewhere, which they, once we started making them, they started doing it. That was kind of surprising. And then this committee that they have, Olive Ann says she turns into the B word as she pushes them to do their piece of the job. And but it's been an important piece. Olive Ann and our climate scientists are both professors at Metropolitan State University, and they are our 3rd partner. They've given us 2 ICA interns, and one is a new one that's currently active. We've trained a dozen students in the forum and various ICA methods, and they help with forums. There's a new Earth and Atmospheric Science course called Community Climate Initiatives at the university where students can get service learning credit that just started this fall. We're hoping they're going to assist putting an Auraria campus forum together. Now, Auraria campus here is made up of Metropolitan State University, the University of Colorado at Denver campus, and the Community College of Denver. So 3 universities are located on that one campus, and each has their own climate philosophy and work, and they don't play nice together yet in this area. So we're really working to get that to happen, because it would be very powerful, and their students would like it to happen. It's more at the administrative level that it's an issue. And then recently we've contacted...
What was the 3rd
you have a question?
university that you said?
Community College of Denver.
Thank you.
And our team, Olive Ann and another teacher, have contacted Denver Public Schools, and their science specialist is letting all of the science teachers across Denver Public Schools know about our forums and asking them about engaging students. And the reason we find students so powerful is that they're young, they have energy, they have passion, and at this stage of their life they maybe have the highest compassion that they may ever have, and they really care about the climate, as you know, Greta Lindbergh has taught all of us. Yeah, the thing to be aware of is that they graduate and they move on. Often. We've only had one who has stuck with us after graduation. But another has recently started teaching a free class on climate science that I took, and that was really powerful. Anyway, even though they move on, you know you've seeded them to do their work wherever they go. This was our big launch, the People's Fair. Our other partner, it's called Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods, and is an umbrella organization that's been around for 60 years with 10 central Denver neighborhoods under that umbrella. And so they gave us a free booth at the People's Fair in 2016. And you'll see there on the left, I think that might actually be Catherine Welch getting somebody engaged. But there's a map on the left that they're standing in front of where people would come in and put what neighborhood they're in and sign up that they're interested in the forum. Then that thing kind of in the center that's bordered in red was some kind of a graph to show. It had two axes. One was how bad is the problem, or how bad do you think it is, and the other one was how much do you want to do something about it. And that upper right-hand quadrant is it's really bad and we really want to work on this, is where most of the dots came. So we also did a bit of an ICA sticky wall process where we had people write cards on what their concerns were and cards on what actions they thought needed to be taken. And so that got a lot of interest early on. That then took us into that demonstration forum, that second bullet there for the 10 Chun neighborhoods. And you can see, you know, our forums are people gathered around tables, as most ICA events, so that's sort of our first neighborhood forum was in May of 2017, and we've now done the 10 forums in 12 neighborhoods. And we've had about 400 participants so far. We have 41 action plans. You'll see that picture of those of you who do this kind of work will recognize that template for doing an action plan. I learned when I did a follow-up forum about a week ago that they don't always do their forums. So I'll touch on, do their action plans. I'll touch on that in a minute in terms of what we've learned. But 40 businesses have been engaged with in-kind and cash. We think it cost about $1,100. We've been charging $6, so probably going to up that. And now that we have our 501c3, we can go after local supportive grants for these neighborhoods. Because until now, it was no money and no staff to get where we are. Coming up in 2020, we have finally been accepted to do a session, a breakout session at Denver Sustainability Summit. It's run by the city's Office of Sustainability. And it's never before had local people with an open door to come in and be a part of it. It's always been government agencies, big corporations, and big organizations. So this was a huge turnaround, and we were ecstatic to be accepted. We've got an event scheduled in a different city, but it's kind of a suburb, but a large one, called Littleton in spring. And the city of Boulder has come to us and said, we've got these fabulous plans for dealing with climate, and we just declared as a city a climate emergency. And Boulder is one of the top 100 cities in the country doing something about the climate. But what they realized was they had no way to engage their population, their residents. And someone who has a lot of credibility with the city had run into Catherine at a Together Colorado event and heard about our forums, came to one or two to see what they were like, and has brought us to Boulder to be in dialogue with them about using our process in their neighborhoods, which probably won't start up till next spring or summer, given how their timeline is rolling out. But that was really exciting for us. The other focus in 2020 is an inclusivity strategy through public housing, because we have just beat our heads against the wall trying to get our lower income neighborhoods and our often left out and badly maligned climate-wise neighborhoods to participate with this. And so we're kind of doing an end run on that. We'll be focusing also on getting the 6 remaining of the 10 Chun neighborhoods. And Denver's Office of Sustainable Neighborhoods, their Sustainable Neighborhood Program, has 14 neighborhoods. We've done 2 of them. So we're looking to do their other 12 in the coming year. And now that we can get grants, we think that'll be a lot easier to get going. So looking back, what we've learned, we did a quick brainstorm of this week. not realizing how it might fit into this little presentation. But professional facilitator was what one of our forum participants said was absolutely critical to these things going well. We found we can do them in any neighborhood. And as I said, I did this follow-up one, and the fact that they hadn't even, some of their action teams hadn't even met for the whole year, they were very unhappy with themselves. So I just gently encouraged them to make plans that they were actually going to do. And I think they're much more realistic. And we sort of noted that maybe it takes a community about a year of sort of false starts and mucking around to really get down to it and doing what works. Finally, a full day on Saturday is a little much. We've done some evenings and part day Saturdays that have worked. We are finding ourselves, in terms of being so focused with our nose to the grindstone in the neighborhoods, that looking at some of the larger issues and engaging neighborhood residents in some of those, especially some of them that are local and pretty icky, has been hard because we didn't have our heads up that high. So we're going to do a little more of that. We're really pushing the divesting from fossil fuels, including not using them. That's hard for some of us, but we're working on it. Inclusivity, as I said before, toward equity and resilience has been hard. And if we have a breakthrough there, we'll let you know. Also, I'm noticing as a facilitator, neutrality is harder the more you know about the issue. So I have to sit on myself a fair amount. But our biggest advice is don't give up. And Jane has asked, how has your core team sustained your momentum over the last few years? We hold each other's hand. Catherine and I work together on the 501c3, and right now we're starting to work on funding. If you working in at least pairs and meeting, we do meet a lot, which is kind of annoying, but it's also exciting to hear what each other has been doing and how it's going, and just keep moving. Ollie Van has been, and her husband Jim have been real tigers at getting out there and talking to neighborhoods and following up. Catherine, maybe you should unmute and say what you think has sustained us.
And
the fact that the issue is so in our face, I suppose, is part of it.
Let me just invite others to put questions into the chat box if you have questions for Sunny.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I just was going to add, as far as getting people who have done a forum in their neighborhood, particularly were involved in the planning of the forum, we are asking to participate with us in our coordinating team. So we had a meeting, was it yesterday, I think? We had 2 neighborhood leaders join us that I think will hang in with us and then be a part of encouraging other neighborhoods. They have great wisdom about what it took to do the job in their neighborhood and are enthusiastic about passing that on. That's it.
Thank you so much.
And Caitlin has said, being finally included in the Denver Sustainability Summit is exciting. Oh man, it is to us. And that was a driving force for us when we went to the summit, one of the early summits, and realized there was no way for neighborhoods and residents to participate. It really pushed us to get on the ball here. Hopes for specific goals for that event are to be more on the map, more in people's consciousness, that we are a resource to neighborhoods that is of value. And we're going to ask them how to get better inclusivity, whoever shows up at our session. Training neighborhood leaders. I'll tell you what, Sherwood and I, are the main facilitators here, Sherwood Shanklin and I, go around and rant about this because he wants to train neighborhood leaders. He really does, seriously. And I want them to work in their neighborhood and not worry about trying to do forums somewhere else. Because if you've got leadership potential, your neighborhood needs that. And my approach has been to go after people who've had top training. And we've got about 5 who are willing to do that. 4 of them have been to forums. And Ollie Van has finally said, well, okay, I know how. I guess I should facilitate too. So she's willing to do it. So that gives us enough as we begin to, we see kind of a bit of an explosion on the horizon. And we're backing that up right now. And I may be wrong in terms of not training neighborhood leaders. So I'm willing to have my mind changed. What have neighborhoods successfully implemented? Tree planting, gardens, more solar. What else, Catherine? I'm going drawing a blank here. One got their street lights to be dimmer. They were looking for dark skies at night, but not unsafe, so they just got dimmer street lights.
Composting is a more regular, encouraging participation in city composting, as well as backyard composting has been a big one, which everybody...
Oh, and one of the guys who was... Go ahead. I was just going to talk about Sven. There's a compost collective, guys who go around on bicycles with buckets and will go to high-rises whose compost is not collected by the city. And there are many high-rises here. And they will give you a clean bucket. They will make sure your bucket of compost doesn't have naughty stuff in it. And I think it's $5 a month to get your compost collected if you don't have any other place to put it. One lady freezes hers and sends it to a friend whose compost is collected. So there's great ideas out there. Another person has suggested to her group that they take on one new thing every month. Like 1 month it was every time we go out to eat, we teach them about not using straws. We teach the restaurant about not using straws and about what are they doing with their waste, because there's so much food wasted and so many hungry people. So there's some projects being done there. Another one was to, okay, this is the month of only cloth napkins. So if I have to bring my own cloth napkin to the restaurant, I can do that. It's kind of fascinating what people are coming up with.
Challenge, like 1 month to avoid all plastic bags, was one neighborhood group did that.
Some of these changes that can be huge are ones that, you know, we all find hard to do. So you just have to start retraining yourself and your habits. A little at a time. Okay, the idea of tracking, someone has asked if we're tracking progress in any way. That's been a bugaboo for us. What is the measurement and how do we do that? We track that they have plans. We're starting to track, did they do the plans? But the actual measurement of reducing carbon effects, we've not found a good way to have neighborhoods do that. And we're still, if any of you have that, send it our way, because I think it's a huge need.
I want to thank you for this, and Ruth has written a comment about wanting to have a list of those actions, so that's possibly something we could add at some point to this. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. We get more at every event. And we do give them lists of the simple stuff you can do. And one church has got a new recycling bin just for glass when they discovered that if you mix glass in with your cardboard stuff, it ruins it and it's hard to recycle. And then it winds up in the landfill, even though you thought you recycled stuff.
I have to raise my hand here.
So that's a good thing to learn.
Those illustrations are very, taking the napkin or talking to the restaurant about straws. That's a critical list of doable things that would just be really important to write as many of those down as you can, because other people can take those to other local groups and make it doable.
I recommend if your airport doesn't recycle the food to those who are hungry, that you have a conversation with them about it. Because all of those concession stands and all of those airplanes that have food on them, beforehand, they're just pitching that stuff, going into a landfill. So if it can be, is the kind that can be collected, then people can take it to homeless shelters and stuff. That's what our airport is now doing.
Thanks, Sunny.
And quite a fine job
of. A round of applause on our little thing up here. I really love this, being able to give you applauses virtually for sharing
Thank you,
this.
thank you.
I now want to introduce Ryan Bell, a colleague and friend for a number of years now, whose daughter is the person who wrote the poem that we shared at the beginning. Ryan is responsible for climate change initiatives with the University of California system. The President's Office particularly has done some very interesting work in engaging students, faculty, administrative staff in taking just the kinds of actions Ruth was mentioning we want to chronicle. So Ryan, thank you for joining us for this, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
You're welcome. Can you hear me okay, Jane?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for letting me speak to you today. I am in the UC Office of the President, and so I'm not affiliated with a specific campus, but I'm located in Oakland, where the President's Office works with all of our campuses to advance various goals, including our sustainability initiatives. So just to give a little bit of an overview, we have 10 campuses throughout the state of California, 5 medical centers associated with those campuses, and also operate 3 national labs in California and Los Alamos, New Mexico. Sustainability has been at the core of what we do for a long time, and ultimately has been driven by our students. About 17 years ago, it was students that encouraged our regents to adopt our first green building and clean energy policies. And another example is from about 10 years ago on the UC Santa Barbara campus. One student named Logan Green organized the first student referendum on raising student fees to provide funding for sustainability initiatives. Through our system-wide sustainability networks, this percolated out to the other campuses, and now at all 10 campuses, we have student-funded sustainability projects that are conceived of, funded by, and operated by the students. And through this program, a number of very impactful careers were launched, and I'm going to circle back to that a little bit later in my presentation. But to talk a little bit more about where we are now, in the intervening years, our sustainable practices policy has grown to include 10 specific topic areas, each supported by an intercampus working group, and each contains a very specific, measurable targets that we're trying to achieve. So, for example, in our green building, in our clean energy program, we have a goal of reducing energy use in overall in our facilities 2% per year per square foot. So the energy intensity being used in the buildings. In our zero waste areas, we are looking at reducing the waste we generate 25% by 2025, and we're tracking our progress in these areas. More recently, our focus has been around our carbon neutrality initiative. The big goal is the 2025 goal. The UC system is committed to emitting 0 net greenhouse gases from our buildings and vehicles fleets by 2025. This is something that no major research university system has done yet. And it is a very aggressive target. What we're looking at here in this graph is what are, in the dark blue line, what our history of emissions are. In the dotted blue line is where they would be going under business as usual, extending past trends. And in the gray dashed line, where they need to go to meet our 2025 goal. So this is definitely an aggressive target. We need to bend that curve downwards and become more proactive. But I'm happy to be able to report that in the last 2 years since this graph came out, we've been able to reduce our emissions about 5% a year, despite fairly significant growth on campuses. So we are approaching that gray line here as we start to enter 2020. We also, this is an aggressive target, but it's also, we feel, an achievable one. What you're looking at here, there's going to be no quizzes on this, but I wanted to give you a sense that we do have a plan. Each one of these wedges represent a specific set of actions that we're going to be taking within the UC system to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions so that we can look in 2025, 2030, 2035, and so far and see from the top line where our emissions would be, what actions we will have in place at that time to get to where our emissions are. As you can see, we're projecting that we will be achieving net zero emissions by 2025. Many of the strategies that we're taking are infrastructure-based and are being implemented in a more top-down method. To run through those really quickly, a couple of examples. We're focusing on building super efficient buildings. As I mentioned, we have a goal of reducing our energy use per square foot 2% a year. And if you look over the last 15 years at the projects we've put into place, we're currently saving approximately $30 million a year in electricity costs because of the electricity that we're no longer using. In terms of going towards electric buildings, that's a key strategy. As of June this year, no new buildings can have use natural gas for space or water heating. So we're moving towards all electric buildings, which in California is very important because our electricity tends to come from renewable sources. We do still have on our campus central heating plants that do use natural gas, and so to help try to offset those, we're investing in a number of projects to bring biogas and renewable gas onto the network. This is capturing methane from landfills, agricultural systems, and other places, cleaning up and injecting it into the domestic natural gas network so that it's a renewable source of natural gas that we can use on our campuses. We're also investing heavily in renewable sources. We have 2 large solar farms in the Central Valley of California, and we've been ranked by the EPA as the 5th largest on-site solar producer in the country. Our buildings are our biggest source of emissions, but also looking towards our vehicle fleets. Our goal is to get to 50% of our vehicles being electric or hybrid vehicles by 2025, and we provide almost 1,000 electric vehicle charging stations on our campuses. So for the rest of my time, I wanted to start talking about what we're doing to engage our community. We have over 250,000 students that are enrolled in our programs and almost 200,000 faculty and staff members. So we have a very large community that we're trying to reach to become engaged in these projects. Some of the things that we're doing is that we run a fellowship program. We have Carbon Neutrality Initiative fellows, 45 of them on all of our campuses that are either engaged in projects or working on ways to engage their communities through activities and events to reduce the campus's carbon footprints. As I mentioned, all sections of our policy have a intercampus working group that supports it. These are staff-level experts that meet together once a month to exchange best practices, discuss issues, common barriers, and possible solutions. We're also working internally and with the California State University system to really try to integrate climate change into the curriculum we're teaching. And we're even sponsoring a K-12 climate education summit in December to try to bring climate change sensibilities into the curriculum at the lower grade levels. Most recently, I've been involved with what has been our largest engagement initiative. This is called the Cool Campus Challenge, and I've been told it is one of the largest community-based social marketing campaigns that have taken place in the country. The challenge was designed to help raise awareness about our climate protection goals and get our students, faculty, and staff involved in that. The desired outcomes were to activate our population, educate them about what they can do, motivate them to take action, empower them with the tools to be able to take actions to ultimately reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and create a culture of sustainability on our campuses. The challenge itself was a friendly 4-week competition that ran last April. The competition was between campuses. Participants could sign into an online web portal that we put together, log actions that they were taking that reduced greenhouse gas emissions, upload stories and photos of things they were doing, and earn points. And ultimately, the campus that earned the most points would be crowned the coolest campus in the UC system. This challenge worked on a number of levels. It was a personal competition. People who signed up, one of the first things they do is ask to take their own carbon footprint calculator and see where they were, how they were doing in areas for personal improvement, and then they could take actions that would reduce that footprint. There was a team competition within each campus's fraternities or sororities or sports teams or clubs or various academic departments or staff units could sign up teams and compete against one another on the campus, and that was a very effective way to get the word out with friendly competition amongst people who knew each other. And then there was ultimately the campus level competition to see which was the #1 campus in the system. We used a number of community-based social marketing tools and built them into our campaign. Ultimately, this was an educational and motivational campaign, so what you see on your screen, it's a little small, I apologize, but what you're looking at is a screenshot of the action pages that where people can sign up and log the actions they're taking. And it includes a description of what the action is, why it's beneficial, provide some tips there, and also links out to local campus resources so that people could go directly to the location within their community to sign up for bus passes, find out more about recycling, things such as that. It was also very important for us to integrate immediate feedback to the participants. So instantaneously, when you took an action, you could see the carbon dioxide savings that you were getting. On the previous page, these scoreboards updated in real time, so you could always see the standings of the campuses, the teams, various participants, what your standings were. We also allowed for social features like liking or reporting various actions that people were being reported. And very important to this was the social norming pieces of it. So you could see who else was taking actions. You could upload photos and upload stories and see that you're part of a community all taking action together. You could also nominate heroes and people that you thought were doing a super job on your campus and that they'd get promoted. And we worked with campus leadership to really provide permission to their community. The chancellors and vice chancellors would send out emails and messages saying, this is something we support, this is who we are as a community, and we encourage you to participate. We supported this all through a variety of communications and marketing materials that I won't go through all of it, but we sent out twice weekly emails to the community that we were working with of participants, put together social media posts, developed the collateral materials you see on the side, from door hangers to tote bags to t-shirts, and supported the campuses through trainings, coordination calls, and providing a little bit of money, which never hurts. Ultimately, if we think about the results that we got, going back to those key performance indicators I mentioned on the first slide, activation, we had over 22,000 participants, a 30% increase from the initial pilot of the project that had run a few years earlier. As I mentioned, it was an educational campaign. We think we were very successful in this arena. The educational pledges and actions were some of the most popular ones taken. We had thousands of participants reading for the first time our carbon neutrality initiative, reading their campus sustainability and climate action plans. And the short video series that we produced got over 80,000 views through our social media posts. So we consider that area to be very successful. In the area of motivation, how motivated were our participants? They took on average about 10 actions each. It fluctuated. Some took many more, but we had over 200,000 actions that were completed. And this area about where did people feel like they were empowered to take action and make a difference. We surveyed them after the competition, and 73% agreed that individual actions could make a change on climate change, and 90% agreed that collective action could. So that was a great success for us. It was really highlighting how individual actions aggregating together could have a very large and significant impact, such as reducing greenhouse gases. Just in this 4 weeks, the impact that we were estimating was that 10,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide was reduced, or the equivalent of taking over 2,000 cars off of the road for 1 year. I have just a couple of minutes. Oh, I forgot to mention, our winners, UC Berkeley was the coolest campus. I live in Berkeley, so I'm happy to see that. But we also had recognition for UC Merced that had over 18% of their campus signed up to participate. And in our health system, UC San Francisco had the most number of points earned. So I want to take 1 minute and just show a couple of the pictures and stories, and you can come back and read these individually here. But these are from some of the most popular actions that were taken. Going meatless for a day, going zero waste for a day were very popular actions. Attending a sustainability event. We were surprised to see turning off computer power usage, and we thought that was low-hanging fruit that had already been accomplished. But there were a number of new actions that were being taken in this area. Eliminating single-use items. This manager bought reusable water bottles for his whole staff. This employee practiced leaving a car at home. This was the inaugural run of an electric bike on the Santa Cruz campus for a father and child. And then we had an area for do-it-yourself actions, for things that we hadn't thought about that people were doing and wanted to promote. So you see here a recipe for a homemade spray cleaner. And this young lady here promoted the fact that she only washes her car in the rain so that she avoids that water usage. I just love that picture there. She looks so happy standing out there in the rainstorm. How is this being used going forward? Well, again, it was educational awareness raising, but we also now have hundreds of new stories and photos that we can use in our materials. And the campuses have developed thousands of new contacts. On the UC Berkeley campus, they are developing a community of practice where they're bringing together the participants in forums such as this one to discuss what they can continue to do to be more sustainable. And their student carbon crew is working on follow-on activities to continue engaging with the community. And they, in fact, decided not to use their $2,000 prize money for a party, but to launch an energy efficiency campaign where they're stickering all the light switches and computers on campuses with reminders to turn off their equipment. So I'm going to skip that slide and just close out here now. I'm about a minute over my time. And say that ultimately what we're doing this for is for our students. We want to ensure that they have efficient, affordable education, and that we're practicing what they preach and are using our campuses as living laboratories that they can use to develop skills that they use in the real world. So going back to these photos from the beginning, from 10 years ago, on the Santa Barbara campus, Logan Green had the mission to really change transportation and mobility. And we think he went forward to do that, having launched a small company that you may have heard of, Lyft. And when they decided they were going to become carbon neutral, he reached out to this young man in the tree here, Sam Aarons, to become Lyft's first sustainability director and take them towards carbon neutrality. So this is magnifying going forward, and we're very excited to see what our current generation of students do as they enter the workforce, because it's a critical issue that we need to take action on for the next generation. And I'll close with the photo of my daughter, who was the author of the poem that we opened with. And,
Ryan, you've got a couple minutes.
That's the end of my presentation. Do I have time for questions, Jane? Okay. I see one here. Which calculator did you use or recommend people use? I'll promote the Cool Climate Network, which is based on the UC Berkeley campus, and we actually partnered with them to put on the challenge, and they have a calculator on their website. Is anyone looking to do this competition state to state? I haven't heard of state-to-state competitions, but I know in California this has been used once or twice between cities and local governments. And again, if someone was interested in taking that on or promoting that, our partners with the Cool Climate Network are who I would point to as being willing to work on that, and specifically Chris Jones. I'm inspired by the ability of competitions like this to motivate. I also think it could be an opportunity to use competitions in maybe a counterintuitive way to cross political boundaries. I'm not entirely sure what that question is getting at there, but I do agree that competitions do motivate and takes out some of the political discussion and ramifications from the conversation with people taking actions because they're being motivated by other reasons. We did try to keep the actions we were taking, the information we were putting out as very neutral and non-political, but in an informative way, trying to resonate with our various populations, because we get people from all across the political spectrum. What we're going to do different next year is that we're going to do it every couple of years, not every year, because it gets stale if you do it too frequently, and it's good to have a certain number of our students graduate, so we're talking to a new audience. But some of the things that we are going to do is we're actually going to de-emphasize the competition between campuses a little bit. That's a turn-off to some of the campuses who score lower, and so we're going to make some technical changes to the tool and trying to structure around a tool that's open year-round and campuses can integrate into their ongoing programming, and then focus for 1 month on a collective climate action month, where there'll still be a competition impact, but we're also going to be including targets such as moving together towards a common goal of a certain number of actions taken or a certain number of greenhouse gases reduced, so that we're going to try to bring in a more collaborative process as well and really emphasize that power of community actions. We're also going to really try to reach out to some of the communities that weren't engaged as much, like our health systems and our labs that aren't traditional campuses with students that they can motivate to get involved and really work on our communications ability. And the final thing I will mention is that we are going to work on really implementing a formal training in community-based social marketing for our campus leads and our fellows, so that they can be as effective as possible when they are taking the message, that from the tools that we put together, our central office, and diffusing it out into their networks on their campuses. And I think I will stop there because I've gone a minute over my time, but I'm happy to answer more questions at the end. And I believe I am turning the floor back over to Jane Stallman, the senior partner and founder of the Center for Strategic Facilitator, where she's still a mentor and topic trainer.
Ryan, thank you so much. My presentation is going to be really fast. It's a spotlight presentation, and I am going to focus on 2 small projects anyone can do. And Karen, you can certainly jump in on the Climate of Hope Study Group, and Maxwell Park Sustainability was a neighborhood-based project, which is much smaller scale than what Sunny described for the Denver program, but still was a lot of fun and interesting. I'm 73, and at this point in my life, I'm into doing small things. So one of the members of our design team, Paula Whitney, when we started looking at book studies, said, I just don't want to be weighed down by the seriousness of everything. I need some hope. And at this point, I think Denver was doing a Climate of Hope book study, and they kind of triggered our thinking about this. And so we set up a Climate of Hope book study. We ranged over a fairly wide geographic area in the San Francisco Bay Area. We formed a small team of Karen Bain, Paula Whitney, and myself. And both Paula and Karen were in the Mastering Technology of Participation program, and part of our goal was also to give them more opportunity to design sessions, to facilitate sessions, and we chose to focus on an ICA method called book charting, and also using an imaginal education focus. So our primary purpose was provide Paula and Karen with opportunities to practice, provide participants an opportunity to think, I can't even read what it says there, to think deeply and expand their knowledge in the area of environmental sustainability, to model process for facilitation or expansion of the conversation, and mobilize energy around climate reality work. Also, to feel optimistic that we can make a difference. And Ryan, your chart really reminded me of that goal where if you don't feel anything can be done, you don't have the energy to go forward. So we divided decided to do 7 sessions, which is a lot. Each part of the book, of which there were 7, has 2 chapters, one written by Pope and one written by Bloomberg. Bloomberg was the mayor of New York, and Carl Pope had been the head of the Sierra Club for 20 years. And so we had 7 sessions. They basically were on Sunday afternoons, which we felt were somewhat of a downtime, and that we would rotate leadership and facilitation and also homes, because we had one person coming from San Francisco, several the East Bay, Paula was in Walnut Creek. So we were sort of all over the place. And we use this book charting format. Now I'm going to put all of these things into a share. I can send it out to those of you. You'll have access to it. But this is the whole book laid out as a chart. And you can see we went to key points was the first part. The second row down is what are some actions that we feel represent what this chapter was about, this part was about. And so we just had people document for each of their sessions in this format, have a conversation in this format. And then we went out, we got the structure together, and we marketed to friends, neighbors, colleagues, people at church and synagogue. And we put together a flyer, which of course you can't read, but it will be in the packet. And I love this Renew Your Optimism because it did attract people to come. Then we designed the basic session plan. Refreshments was a very important part of this. And we divided people up into small groups. There was something that we did in introductions. This is the session design we used. It informed most of our 7 sessions. And it's an Imaginal Ed Kaleidoscope Design session plan, which was a part of what both Karen and Paula were also learning. Here's a couple of pictures getting started. It was very home-based. It was very informal. And there's Stephen Weiss, who was a neighbor of mine, reporting out on one of the presentations. And then we documented. So everyone got copies of the documentations. And one of the things that was really fun was to have the image of that section of the book, just have it as an image to remind us of what we did. So that's the actual activity part, but the follow-up part is really critical. So we set up a Dropbox where participants could put resources in. We have an email list, and there's still some sharing on email lists among people. This was a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago maybe. And so people are still sending out articles. And also, this was leading into our top conference in January, where we wanted to develop some enthusiasm, some momentum, some thinking about how might we continue this work this coming January. Now, the second thing I'm going to highlight really, really quickly is Maxwell Park sustainability. And this was a community mobilization effort and community building effort. It was so much fun. And it was also around how can we be more thoughtful in our neighborhood? What are people doing that is increasing our environmental sustainability? So we formed a small design team that ranged from 2 to 4 people. We decided on a structure, and it was 4 times a year, and we developed activities for year 1. Now, one of the key factors of this is it had to be simple. We had to not be overstressed because people were all busy. So we did a neighborhood walking tour, which was really fun. Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland is doing incredible sustainability work, so we went and visited that, and they fixed dinner for us out of things they've grown in their garden and their chickens. And then one of our design team is an expert in water conservation and testing, so we got to test things. And then we had a focus on solar energy. So these were all things we could do. It didn't require other people doing anything. And we connected with local resources to help make this happen. And Sunny, I heard you talk about that too. So we have a day in the park at Maxwell Park. It's Maxwell Park neighborhood, and there's a park in Maxwell Park called Maxwell Park. And we put up a flip chart with people signing up, how they might want to contribute and participate. And then our K-8 school is doing unbelievable work with there's a land for public trust, taking their heat island of a campus and converting it into a regenerative space that will involve neighbors as well as school kids. And so they participated with us. And then next door is about the best communication vehicle anybody could have about promoting things. We put together support materials. This is the map we did of our site so that we could share with people where to walk. So we did the walking tour, and we had to have resources together. And then we made sure to document and thank contributors. This is the Bishop O'Dowd High School, and we gave them a little picture album of people visiting their site. So this was really fun to do, and different neighbors came at different times. One of our neighbors said that she'd never been to a neighborhood activity before, and so that's really it. It's just something anybody can do in their neighborhood, particularly now that we have communication mechanisms like next door. So I'm complete, and I see Sunny has a question. I'm going to do this very quickly because we're a little behind. Denver
yeah, we somewhere along
Sunny,
about a year ago maybe we all studied Climate of Hope.
Share.
And different ones took different chapters and presented at the beginning of each of our meetings. We spent a little time on it. It was a motivator and a support in that with the U.S. Federal administration backing off of a bunch of stuff to see that the cities and the mayors of cities were picking it up and saying, we don't care if you're not doing this, we're doing it. That was just very hopeful.
It is, yeah, and I'm thinking about doing it in Ecuador also, so we'll see. So Caitlin, let's turn it over to you.
All right, so this is an opportunity for us to dig a little bit more deeply and think about the presentations overall, and specifically for this section we're thinking about questions of significance for the panel. So it can be a question, if you see that there's a chat box over here, you can type it in, or you could raise your hand and we're welcoming your voice into the room. But a question that either digs more deeply into a particular speaker's presentation, or it can be a single question for the entire panel. So I'll give you a moment. I see some people going over to the chat box. I think in the interim, while you think of what those questions will be, all right, Ruth, go ahead. Nope, Ruth, I think you are muted.
Ruth, just click on the microphone at the top of the toolbar in the Adobe meeting and you can unmute. Oh, you're unmuted now, so you... But Ruth, we do not hear you. Maybe you could type your question into the pod for us. That would be great. Sorry.
Yeah. All All right, so I think Ruth's having some technical difficulties. But I see, so Sunny's asked, Ryan, are you already working with some other universities in other states? And I can think of some here who would be really interested. Yes. So go ahead, Ryan.
We're not formally working with universities in other states, but everything we've developed, we built the tool from scratch this year, is available again through the Cool Climate Network, and there's been discussions with businesses, local governments, and some other universities about potentially using it, but we don't have any formal relationships yet. But I am happy to put you in touch with the people who can discuss how to make that happen if you have contacts in your area.
Yeah, would love that. Thank you.
So the next question I see, Jane, I'm assuming this is for everyone. What are some ways we can promote the successes of your accomplishments? And whoever would like to go first can go first. How about Sunny?
Well, if you're interested in doing neighborhood work, we're happy to share everything we've got. We have a guidebook for the coordinating teams for the neighborhood. What are all the roles and the things they need to do? And it even has sample letters to ask places for in-kind donations and sample thank you letters to go back to people that supported you. And I've got procedures for doing the forum itself. There's just, and at our website are all the documents from the 10 that we've done so far. If you want to go see those. So I'm going to put the link to the YouTubes about this, have that put on our Facebook page and maybe on our website. Not sure how that goes.
And this is Ryan. I know through our challenge, I was really impressed with the power of social media. I have not, jumped in with both feet of that, and using that as a motivating tool and getting the word out. But when it came out that we put together a couple of videos, and within the matter of a week or two, they were viewed 80,000 times. That was really impressive. This is the first group of people here, and so we have those videos, but we also have an entire Climate Lab video series that we put together with the Vox network that could be, a focal point around a social media campaign or post, and it doesn't necessarily need to promote us and the work we're doing, but it's a really accessible way to get the word out to the larger community. Those videos are about 2 years old, and they still were one of the most popular actions taken in the challenge, so they still seem to resonate with the community.
Great.
Yeah.
Renee, do you want to
this question probably for Ryan, but feel free to chime in if there's other thoughts. I'm thinking about transportation and energy and the great things that the university system has done on the campuses for that, and I'm wondering your thoughts on the changing the vehicles, doing the electric charging, and how that ties into the renewable energy that's needed for that, and how I'm working on a project in my community around community charging, and at work I want to get our fleet transferred over to electric vehicles, so I'm wondering if you have any key takeaways or advice on what you did there and how we can transfer that into local communities, like taking it out of a campus and into a neighborhood.
Right. Yes, I agree that electric vehicles are definitely a piece of the solution, especially in areas where the electrical grid is relatively clean. Couple of thoughts that I'm having, or resources, in terms of taking into the community specifically. The city of Berkeley is just in the final stages of completing a electric mobility roadmap, where they went through a process of engaging with their entire community to determine how to incorporate electric resources for mobility into there. And this project started out as the electric vehicle roadmap, and they very quickly heard when they were getting out, especially to low-income communities, that vehicle is not the way to be going. We need to be thinking of scooters, electric skateboards, electric buses for our public transportation system, which is what became the electric mobility roadmap. And so that could possibly be a tool and a resource that could be used there. They're coming up with solutions about community infrastructure and community charging there. In terms of fleets, it's a matter of the big hurdle that comes up is the upfront costs, and so we're really focusing on putting into place life cycle cost analyses for our decision-making processes to show the full cost and the full spectrum of what we're doing there. And also, due to our climate commitments, we're going to be requiring purchasing carbon offsets. So there's inherently putting a price on carbon. So if vehicles don't electrify or become lower emissions, there's going to be an operating cost for offsetting the carbon that they are producing. A specific technology that I just got very interested in is a mobile charging pack. And this relates to your question about how to integrate it into the renewable grid. And so what this is a large battery that can charge from one outlet during the day when the vehicles are out around in town and being used, and also while the most sun is shining, so it can get the most renewable electrons to charge it. And then it can charge up to 7 vehicles in the evening, which then when there's a higher electricity demand and there's less solar power generation, so effectively shifting that demand for electricity into the renewable portion of the daily cycle. And also by being able to charge multiple vehicles off of this one battery pack, it saves fleets and businesses a large amount of money in buying multiple charging stations and trenching multiple cables. So those are just a couple of things that I've been working with here recently, and sorry for going on so long.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. Great, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Everybody has a follow-up.
For the life cycle cost. Oh, sorry, is my speaker bouncing back or something?
Your speaker's fine, but I would really love to have Ryan type into the chat what that last thing is he mentioned, because I'm not an audio learner, and if I don't see it, I can't remember it.
I'm
All right, so.
So you mentioned the life cycle cost analysis. Other than, I imagine, depreciation and the price of carbon comes into that, is there anything other than those two metrics that you're incorporating into the cost analysis?
Yes. So for our fleet department and also for our building departments, we're also looking at the costs of the operating costs and the maintenance costs. So especially when you come to fleet vehicles with electrification, there's no longer oil changes and other fuel changes, and the maintenance costs become a lot less. So that's an important factor to incorporate.
Cool. One more follow-up question. For the carbon offsets, so I am currently trying to do carbon offsets for the company I work for. What, like a similar question to earlier, what calculator are you using for that? Because I did 2 different calculations for the flights that my company takes, and I got numbers that ranged from $500 to $4,500 for the same number of miles. So I'm like wondering which ones are actually reliable or how to figure out which ones are reliable.
That's a much larger conversation that probably should take offline, and the short answer is yes, that's a problem, and we're launching a project this year and a follow-on project next year to try to get our heads around that as well. There's some simple assumptions that you can make differently at the beginning of a project. It can lead drastically different results, but I'd be happy to follow up and shoot you towards some experts in our area, because I can't just list off some companies
well, thank you.
in my head.
Before I move us to the next section, are there any last questions of significance for the full panel or a particular speaker? I had a quick one just for Jane. We've heard a little bit about the cost associated with the different programs. Anka quoted, I think, $1,500, and I was just wondering what it cost to do your book study and then the Maxwell Park.
People contributed food, so participants also contributed food. Some people used BART to get places. I had some supplies, like a few flip chart pages we used. We copied some things off of our own printers for the book study. Maxwell Park, we didn't charge anybody anything. Again, we provided a little food for refreshments for the tours and our meetings, but with stuff out of our kitchen. So there really were no costs at all, Caitlin.
Awesome. And I see Sunny's, correct me a bit, it's $1,100 for everything. Awesome. All right. Any other last minute questions of significance? Oh, I see some typing.
This is Kathy.
You can also unmute if anyone wants to jump in here.
Presenters and what fabulous PowerPoints they shared and the information that went with them. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll have to include all these links when we do the write-up. I am going to now move us to the next section. So we're going to do some digesting of all the things we have learned and discussed. So you can jump into a chat box, and the particular questions we'll start with is you can jump into just sharing an insight or a learning you've had over the course of this webinar, and perhaps an implication. This is the second chat box for your environmental sustainability work, one implication. And after we get a few of those out into the virtual room, we'll then have a short discussion about some key themes we can take away from our conversation here. But I'll give you a couple of minutes to type in some answers, both for an insight and learning and an implication for your environmental sustainability work. And whatever that means for you, environmental sustainability can be defined in many different ways. Okay, so I think everyone's done typing into insights and learnings. Go ahead and type in some implications for your work. All right. So some of the insights and learnings that we have brought into the room. So it takes a while to ramp up projects. Amazing work is being done, and it'd be great to know, for others to know about it, using newspapers, e-news, environmental sites. Sunny also shares that there's more ways to appreciate students. Kathy had starting with the book of hope is a great idea. We've all felt dragged down by the huge burden of pollution. Not to assume our audience are sustainability professionals who are already aware or are cynical about individual actions. Also, measurement matters. Both UC and Alameda County Sustainability have set aggressive goals for carbon reduction and neutrality. I think big goals that seem daunting are necessary to drive the change needed. And there's power in collective action. The need for tangible follow-up to keep motivation moving forward. Social marketing also matters. And the CA program is pretty impressive and cool. And an FYI, favorite book, Drawdown, Big Stuff, and The Parent's Guide to Climate Revolution, 100 Ways to Build a Fossil-Free Future, Raise Empowered Kids, and Still Get a Good Night's Sleep. That's a great list. Yeah, we'll definitely have to collect all of these resources for our toolkit. Can I have a volunteer read the implications for environmental sustainability work? Perhaps Jane, since you're already unmuted.
Sustainability work. I see an opportunity to get more local universities engaged for their campuses and with us in their neighborhoods. A key to hope in the area of climate change is juxtaposing the big corporate work Ryan described with the very local doable items that Denver described. Showing collective impact action is powerful. I will propose to my old neighborhood doing a neighborhood session based on the Denver model. Jane's book study will be my suggestion for a neighborhood book study. Great projects, plans, and resources already exist out in the world. We are doing small and big things that matter. We know what to do and how to do it. The question for me is, how do we go about making those things happen on the ground with limited resources and limited federal support?
Great, thank you, Jane. So now as we think about the insights and learnings that we've shared, the different implications, I want to direct us to thinking about key themes that we can take away from this environmental sustainability webinar that we've spent a decent chunk of time both listening and sharing. So I know not everyone has a microphone, but if you do, feel free to unmute, and we'll just think about what are some key themes. Anyone can start, but as either key themes across the different speakers or themes of something that they have learned
can type in the chat box
or grown in.
Also.
So.
Yeah.
Right on the bottom left of your screen. Yeah, we'll just use that chat box to also gather some answers.
Well, whether it's a book study or taking a science class that, like I did and blew my mind, keep learning because it's changing all the time.
Yeah, Sunny, I think I'll add my participant hat is now on. That each of the presenters had a educational component in the work that they do. So I'll just ditto what you just said. Keep learning, keep growing. Anyone else want to share a key theme that they've identified?
I'm struggling with the Go Electric. Coming from a petroleum-producing state, a petroleum engineer father, and only knowing how to cook on natural gas.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a theme emerging for me of don't give up on the small actions, that there's still room for an impact by motivating and remotivating people to really take on some of those things, from not wasting food to you know, some of the other things, doing things in your neighborhood or the composting, not to underestimate those.
Are you able to hear me now? Okay. A theme of
Great. And then I heard Ruth.
Volunteers are key, and you just have to have the energy to keep moving.
Yeah, mine was actually following up on the one before. My thing I was thinking was that the big actions matter and the small actions matter. It all has to be done in conjunction. You're going to be able to target different people based on the level of what you're doing. So.
Renee, would you mention?
It was basically that the big and the small both matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. So as Jane said in the beginning, I believe, this is the third and sort of the last scheduled webinar, and we've been curating the speakers to not have too many overlaps in their content and really see the length and breadth of environmental sustainability. And it's been interesting to see the different key themes that have emerged from somewhat divergent work, since there is usually this undercurrent of comment and action and motivation.
To me,
so any other last themes to add before we move on? I see electric mobility roadmaps.
Support material systems matter. And I'd also like to put measurement matters. Support materials matter. Okay, I'm complete. Support systems matter.
Yeah. And if I can, I would add sharing those things, making them public. All right. I think after that, I'll move this along. All right. So, right. So, if you look to the right, there's a file share pod where you can download not only the presentations from this particular session, but also from the first two. And these environmental sustainability webinars have had this connection to an in-person event that's happening. It's called the TOP, or Technology of Participation Network's annual gathering. The theme this year is Waves of Change. And as you can see in the graphic on the right, it's going to be in California in January. So that's a pretty nice location. And the environmental sustainability social impact area is one of several different social impact areas that is, thank you. It's bringing together not only top facilitators, but practitioners of participatory methods, people who work with groups, people who work with organizations, and then also these practitioners of different social impact area work and activism. So environmental sustainability is just one of these different impact areas that will be bringing together these different communities. And I'll share that community development, youth development, and equity, inclusion, and diversity are all going to be a part of the conference as well. There will be a moment where you'll have to choose between the two, but the facilitated sessions will be as participatory as possible, and there will be a lot of sharing of stories and success across all of these different fields. So there's a chat box also here. If there's any recommendations that you can share with us, just other projects or programs that you know of, you can type in this box to the sort of bottom left. And we have collected the suggestions that have been shared so far. And after and during each session, we've been gathering more and more resources around environmental sustainability, and it's been really fruitful. So if there's any other projects or programs you'd like to share here, this is the opportunity to do that. If anyone has questions about this gathering or how to get the files,
I would like to share with everybody how to
have a
download
moment
the
for
files.
that.
If you only want the files for this particular webinar, they are basically numbered with a pound sign or hashtag 3.
Kathy, your hand is raised.
Environmental session. And if you would like to have all of them, in the upper right-hand corner of this pod, the files share to, there's a little box in the upper right-hand corner with some lines and a caret. If you click on that, you see a drop-down menu, and it says download all. So you could do it that simply, and you'll find them on your computer where you normally get downloads.
Great. I see that Jane has mentioned the links and recordings. Yeah, so after each of these webinars, we share out with the participants and participants of other, the prior ones, the links and recordings for the session. So trying to make it as connected as possible.
Nope.
So you can, if you wanted to follow up with the different speakers, also get in contact with them. Jane, do you want to share something else? Okay. I think I'll scoot us to the next one. Oh, I don't know did we finish this survey? Not sure. So there were 2 surveys at the very beginning, but I think we got excited about intros. So if you want, now is your time to enter in your answers to this fun survey, and also enter in these chat boxes just to help us grow as a team. So we're all every time we do these sessions trying to develop better practices and make it run more smoothly. So there's an opportunity to share with us what worked well. There's a question of if we're going to continue the webinars. Are there particular projects you would want to highlight or learn from? And also share just one thing you're going to take away as you leave us today. We're really appreciative that you've joined us, and I know we've all had a great time. So I'll just pause now. If you haven't voted already, I'll broadcast the results in a minute. But on behalf of the organizing team, I would just like to say thank you for joining us. I think it's possible that everyone who's still here has voted. So while you're typing away, the first survey question was, what is the new packaging material that IKEA will be using or planning to use? The options were leaf waste, mushrooms, hemp, and I see that most of the group picked hemp, but actually, ding, 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 the answer is mushrooms. So I just learned that today, but apparently IKEA will be using mushrooms, and they can be compostable. So once you're done using this packaging, you can throw it in your compost garden. And I know, right? Who knew? So then the next one is, which country no longer uses landfills for their garbage? And we had a split between Norway and Switzerland. Ding, ding, ding. It is Switzerland. So hooray to half the group. And a note about that would be they have, it's something where like 50% of it is being just recycled, and the other part of it's it's a building block. So biodiesel being useful for materials, things like that. So I think that, yep, people are still typing away.
No, I
will wait.
Caitlin, want to thank you, and Karen.
But Jane, do you have any other
Caroline,
comments?
all for helping to design the webinars and to help find people for them and to contribute to making it happen. And we hope that many of you will be able to come to the top conference in January. And if you know of people in California you think might be interested, particularly the San Francisco Bay Area, the social impact sessions on Sunday afternoon and on first thing Monday morning, the first hour and a half of Monday morning are free. So there will be a sign-up process for people to attend that. But I know most of you are not in the Bay Area, but you can let people know about it, have them come, help enrich our discussion on these areas, because there's some great work being done and we want to learn for it. And maximize the impact of participation is one of the critical tools to making a difference. So thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you, Jane. So we're almost at 4 o'clock. I see that everyone has typed away. So I'll just read off the one thing that we're going to take away. Jane shared that working to do the Denver neighborhood meeting in my old neighborhood or in Ecuador, it's tougher to do. Kathy loved the idea of electric mobility roadmap. Sunny having mobile charging stations, got to check that out, or to check out, sorry. And then Renee, community charging in a nonprofit in Chicago, working on electric community charging stations, just sharing the takeaway are on electric mobility. Sorry, I got late in the day brain going on. But yeah, I think that these are, again, we thank you for joining us.
Put it up if anyone has any
I do think,
to make.
I don't know that we have anything else to do except say thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for posting all of these. These are great, and I love that they'll be available on ICA's YouTube channel at some point.
Great evening, and thank you for coming.
First, I think there. Bye. And I want to thank Rosalie for coming. She was one of our early committee members.
Team together and our presenters.
She's a great thinker and provider of information.
Bye, everyone.
Researcher part excellent.
This is Kathy. If you don't know how to leave the meeting, if you have a PC, click on the X, and if you have a Mac, click on the red dot, and you'll be out of the room. And I think Josh left quite a while ago. And I'm not sure about Brad. But we can remove them from the meeting room.
Yep. Pretty easy.
Who's got it?
Okay. I do. Remove and bye-bye.
I connect with Jane.
So, guys, we just have a couple minutes, and I know Ryan needs to leave. But I just would really love to get quick reactions to how it went today and any learning.
Oh, I'm definitely going to go back to Ryan's presentation on what the students actually did.
Gatherings
it's very
or
powerful.
Future
and
webinars.
You mobilized them.
Thanks. It was a lot of work.
I bet.
Wow, I'm sure.
Oh,
it was huge.
But what we're happy about is the tools are available now, and so I didn't answer the question about how much it cost because over half of it was building the tools. But now they're available for other people to build off of.
And thank you very much.
Yes. And is there a fee for using the tools?
I don't remember off the top of my head what the fee is for an organization to join the Cool Climate Network, but it's relatively reasonable. And yeah, their contact information's there. I can put you in touch with Chris Jones, who's the director.
I would just like to say, I thought all the presentations, well, the two that I didn't do, I thought the presentations were so terrific. They communicated so much I'm
You're
so
welcome.
grateful to both of you for doing this, and all of Anne in abstention.
Yeah.
And I know you put work into making them as well. So thank you for that.
I love the fun fact polls and the recent piece of news.
What
Really pushed me because I thought, oh, I haven't been listening. I've had my head down on something else all
we
week.
should capture.
I had to go look something up.
I thought the different scales worked nicely together. The bottom-up neighborhood organizing approach, as someone put it, our institutional top-down community organizing, and then Jane, even your piece about individual actions was nice to juxtapose, all getting to the same place from different levels and approaches.
But for the future might be something to think about in terms of contrasting two different presentations.
I was also thinking when you
and
go
it
to the
intentional
annual
necessarily
planning
originally.
meeting, that you start out with something
Yeah, I
small
agree.
and build to the larger.
I thought it was a nice mix. Oh, we're still recording, by the way.
Okay.